Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again, and that of course means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the latest installment of the Riku box. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to Riku Sanaho once again. It's thanks to him that you guys get to enjoy some Finnish reviews here on the channel. Finnish beer is very difficult to get, but Riku always picks me out some really nice beers. I've been enjoying working my way through this box, as I always do, but we still have a good few more interesting beers to look through as well. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoy these Finnish reviews, and as always, a big kiitos and kiitos to Riku for making these reviews possible. But yeah, for this review today then, we are going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel twice before, once for an out and about video and my first review that we did a couple of weeks ago. But the beer we're looking at today is a style that I very much enjoy, but one that we don't get to review all that often on the channel, unfortunately. And within that style category, it is actually really quirky, in fact. So needless to say, I'm really curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review, we are going to head to Espoo, which is very close to Helsinki, the Finnish capital. Pardon me. And we are going to return to the wonderful Olarin Panimo. So this particular beer is a special version of their Bock Amadeus. So this is a Doppelbock. It comes in at 11.9% ABV, so one of the heavier Doppelbocks we've ever had on the channel actually. But this version is aged in rum barrels, and they've also added some cacao nibs to it as well, which should be quite interesting. But yeah, when I had a little look at this beer on Untappd, the original version of this one is the same ABV, but it's not barrel aged, and usually of course if you barrel age a beer, the ABV will be a little bit higher. So that was one thing that caught my attention with it, but I don't know if the original one has cacao nibs in it as well. I couldn't see that, but yeah, regardless, this beer was one that Riku sent me, and it just kind of captured my imagination when he sent me the picture. So I was like, yeah, let's have one of those. So yeah, this should be a really interesting one to try. It's not often you find a rum barrel aged Doppelbock, and it's not often that you find any Doppelbock that is 11.9% either. This is a pretty heavy beast, this one. So yeah, let's crack on and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Olarin Panimo before, and we will review something else from these guys quite soon. We've got one more beer to look at, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go up to the top of the page, use the search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever, and if I've reviewed beers from your local area, they should appear. Otherwise, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Finnish playlist along with many other things, and I'm sure with Riku's help, we will continue to add to that for the foreseeable future. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a little bit about Olarin Panimo. So, Olarin Panimo, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Espoo, and the company was founded back in 2015. So originally, the brewery was founded by Ville Leino, Nico Isotalo, and Topias Valbeck, but their first location was in the Pienpanimo-olut district of Espoo, where they were operating just a very small 500-litre brew kit. Fast forward to 2018 though, the brewery was relocated to Otaniemi in Espoo, and it's on the Aalto University campus, and here they produce between 220 and 250,000 litres of beer per year. Remember, in Finland they have these tax bans that they have to kind of abide by, otherwise their taxation changes. So this is actually what limits a lot of breweries in terms of their growth, but the government are quite effective, it seems, in changing the law every so often. But the brewery team is 12, they've got 12 employees there, and that year when they moved to Otaniemi, Nico decided to leave the company, and so Tommy Koistinen was hired as the CEO, and he has a background in music, so he's a producer and is actually a rapper himself, and his artist name is Seta Kopinen, or Uncle Kopinen as it would be in English. But even though it's named after the suburb of Olari, this brewery has never been located there other than when it was still a home brewing project. But all of the original founders and the current CEO are originally from Olari, and this area is famous for its underground culture, you know, rap music, skateboarding and graffiti, and these are all used in the Olarin Panimo imagery, which can be seen on the can art, the bottle art, and of course within the tap room. If you check out my out and about video I did at Olarin Panimo's tap room, then you'll see a lot of the pictures and things like that around there. It really is quite cool actually. They've got their own, they really have developed their kind of own art style in fact. But Olarin Panimo itself is known for their different kinds of IPAs, but also lagers and darker beers. Their most popular beer apparently is an American lager called Americhello, which I'm pretty sure we tried when I was at the brewery. But their cans are available in supermarkets, in Alko, the Finnish alcohol monopoly, and also in their own brewery shop as well. But Vireleno is also one of the guys behind the bar called Jova, which you'll find in the centre of Helsinki, quite close to the railway station. And this is a sort of collaboration tap room between 7 different breweries. So yeah, I think there's Etko in there. There is Olarin, of course. A few others. I really forget exactly which breweries it is that are involved in there, but yeah, there are quite a few. To I'm sure were involved in that one also. But Jova is one of the places you really need to check out if you go and visit Helsinki. We did an out and about video there. That was the very first video that I did with Riku in person, which was great. But yeah, like I say, Olarin Panimo, known for their IPAs and their lagers. And according to Untappd, as of January 2023, when we're filming this review for you, they have produced 240 different kinds of beers. And it seems that Olarin Panimo are just very solid all round. They do lots of different things, and they always tend to be pretty damn good. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Olarin Panimo for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's go on and have a wee look at this beer itself. So, like I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is an 11.9% ABV Doppelbock, aged in rum barrels, and it has some cocoa nibs added to it. Strangely enough, the original non-barrel aged version of this beer is 11.9% as well. But you can see plain blue bottle cap on this one. This is 330 millilitres, and I actually can't remember how much this beer was. Riku just sent me a picture and asked if I was interested in any of these, and it was this one that caught my eye. I honestly can't remember. I think it was probably about €7 or €8, something like that. So yeah, for an 11.9% barley wine, that's not bad at all, especially when it comes from Finland, which is one of the more expensive countries. I think Finland's the most expensive country that uses the euro, actually, come to think of it. But yeah, I think the beer is named after the song Rock Me Amadeus, and if you go onto the Untappd profile, they actually have a link to this song. It's really quite retro and quite funny, actually, when you look at it. But yeah, you've had a good little look at the artwork on this one. I think we should just open this up and have a look at it. This beer is one that really caught my interest just when I got it. So yeah, not often you get an 11.9% Doppelbock, as I said earlier, or even one that's aged in rum barrels. So this should be quite interesting. So there we go. Yes, there we are. So, as you can see, this beer has poured pretty much as you would expect from a Doppelbock. So before the head disappears, because I don't think that's going to stick around too long, you can see it's got about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn coloured head. That is just fading away to be a really nice kind of thin foamy layer. But you have got a thicker ring around the edge of the glass there, which looks very nice. But yeah, you can see the bubbles on this beer are actually fairly big in size. The bubbles on the head there are actually kind of bigger than I've seen from a number of beers. But yeah, colour-wise, this beer is what you would expect of the style. There's not too much in the way of visible carbonation inside the liquid. Maybe just 1 or 2 big bubbles at the bottom and 1 or 2 going up toward the bottom of the head. The head incidentally has faded away now. But yeah, it certainly does look pretty nice. Yeah, colour-wise though, this beer, I would say it's a lovely what would we call that? That's a kind of dark chestnutty colour, but it has got a little bit of a brighter mahogany edge to it. If we shine the light through this beer, it does have a fair little bit of brightness to it. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour of your beer as well. Normally in Doppelbocks you wouldn't have to care about that too much, but it wouldn't surprise me if the rum barrel aging in this one has had an effect on the colour of the beer very, very slightly. But in terms of what you would expect colour-wise from a Doppelbock, this is pretty much in the spectrum, or on the spectrum we should say. But yeah, this one is lovely kind of dark, lovely kind of medium chestnut colour, I would say, with a bit of a mahogany edge. But yeah, it certainly looks the part of a Doppelbock. I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one other than the fact that it is slightly hazy, and I can see on the bottle that it has there has been a little bit of sediment in this one. I think this beer actually might have been produced in 2021, so it has been in the bottle for a wee bit, or I don't know. I don't think it was more than a year ago that Riku asked me about buying this beer. So they may have redone this beer in 2022 as well. I honestly couldn't tell you. Maybe Riku will comment below and just clarify that. But this beer, it said on the Untappd page that it was 2021 it was produced, but I really don't think it was that long since Riku and I chatted about this one, to be honest. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Oh yeah, that is pretty damn good. You know, when you hear about a rum barrel aged Doppelbock, you have an idea in your head as to what it's going to smell and taste like, and the aroma is certainly just like that. It's interesting, this one, because yeah, you do get the rum, you can get the rum woody barrels out of it right away. You can smell a little touch of dryness from the cocoa nibs, and then you've got all this kind of brown sugary goodness you've got all this brown sugary goodness from the Doppelbock itself as well. But remember, all the Bock beers originate from Einbeck in Germany, and the reason they're called Bocks is basically because the people in Munich, where the Einbeckers took their beer, made fun of their accent because it sounded to them like they were saying Einbock, and Bock, of course, in German is goat, which is why you see goat on many of these the German Doppelbocks. So yeah, it's interesting with these ones, but German Doppelbocks, I love them. You've got quite a few different Bock beers as well. You've got the regular Bock, the Heller Bock, or Maibock as it's sometimes known, the lighter one. Then yeah, you've got the Doppelbock. There are a few others as well, Weizenbocks as well. So yeah, you've got lots and lots of different types of Bock beers. They're really interesting. But this is one of I think we've only tried 1 or 2 from Finland before, but this smells absolutely lovely. Yeah, so in terms of the aroma then, let's just break this down. The backbone of this beer, you can absolutely smell that lovely kind of oaky backbone with this one. You get that lovely smooth kind of American type oak. There's a wee bit of vanilla in there, and you also have that little bit of the rum, that you can just smell the kind of rum, the sugar cane from the rum in there too. So that's lovely on this one. But above that, you really do get the cocoa nib adjunct coming out. You can smell just that little dry cocoa nibby quality to it. And then of course you've got all these, all the things from the Doppelbock too. There is maybe a little touch of there's maybe just a little touch of nuttiness from the woody and from the barrel and the cocoa nib character as well. But let's try and actually pick out the specific Doppelbock notes. What I would say about this beer, and we do have to remember Doppelbock or Bock beers are lagers as well. So I've found this, you don't get too many like barrel aged lagers, if that makes sense. So the Doppelbock is one of the few lager styles that actually would work with barrel aging. So yeah, with this one it's quite interesting because I do find that the rum barrel in this one kind of dominates the aroma a little bit, and I'm wondering if that is because it's a lager rather than ale. It's an interesting perspective you guys in the comment section below. Let me know your experiences about that, because that's something I've never really thought about before. But yeah, on top of the wood and the rum and the little bit of cocoa nib, I'll point out that the cocoa nibs come out at the back of the nose. You do get the things that you would expect of a Doppelbock. So for me, there's absolutely a little bit of that kind of fresh sort of rye bread crust in there. Above that, of course, you've got a sweet German rye bread character to it. A little bit of wholemeal brown bread as well, but then you get the kind of the actual brown sugars from the beer. So there's a little bit of that leathery, kind of highly caramelized brown sugar. And when this beer is 11.9%, and just going by the colour of it, I wouldn't be surprised if this beer did have a slightly longer wort boil. But you've got those nice, smooth, kind of leathery brown sugary notes out of the beer, but at the same time there's a sweeter treacle molasses kind of thing. There's a sweet caramel in there, which is, you know, these are all things that you would expect. So yeah, bread crust, rye bread, wholemeal bread, a little bit of nuttiness within that as well. Leathery brown sugar, sweet caramel, and then yeah, leathery brown sugar, sweet caramel, and also, yeah, you've also just got a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of this beer too. Yeah, that's interesting. I do like the way the malty character in this beer goes together, and it does blend really well together with the cocoa nibs and the rum barrel aging that you have in this one. The beer almost does have a little bit of a kind of cakey element to it as well. There's a little bit of that chocolate brownie-ish muffin type thing coming out of it. So yeah, the way that pieces together in this beer is really interesting for me. So yeah, as I always say, just take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of these beers before you get stuck into them. Let's focus on the hoppy and fruity side of this beer for a minute. But we have to remember, if this beer was produced in 2021, which I suspect it could be just from the sediment and things like that, and of course what the Untappd page says, most of the hoppy character would have dropped out of this one from that time, but also the fact that it's barrel aged too. And that said though, you do still get a little element of hoppy character out of it. When it comes to Doppelbocks, one of the most popular hops to use in these beers would be the Northern Brewer from Germany. And I do suspect, just from the aroma, that's maybe what's been used in here in conjunction with maybe some sort of American hop. But yeah, you do surprisingly still get a good little bit of, you do still get quite a little bit of hoppy character out of this one. There's certainly a wee bit of smooth earthiness there. There's a little bit of floral character, and you also have some nice, you do also have a nice little bit of a brighter kind of grassy note out of the beer as well, which I do quite like. But on the fruity side of things, there's quite a little bit of sharpness to this beer, which is really interesting as well. So, yeah, on the fruity side of things, definitely some sharper raisins in there. You have, yeah, a little bit of sharper raisin in there. You've also got some, I would say you've got a bit of a juicier plum. You do get some of the dry fruity notes out of this beer as well, but those really take a back seat. This really is more of a kind of, you've got a little bit of that phenolic, sort of medicinal type note to this beer. So definitely some kind of phenolic, kind of fruit loafy type elements to the beer. So yeah, some of that going on. Yeah, raisin, plum, sort of phenolic-y notes in there. Maybe a bit of prune. I think definitely a little bit of prune, but some nice juicy figgy character as well. Bit of sultana. Also a little bit of blackberry, blackcurrant. And yeah, I think that's it, to be honest with you. The fruity notes in this beer are, the more that I smell of it, the more kind of phenol I get out of the beer. But at the same time, it does have some of those really ripe, juicy notes that you want as well. This is going to be an interesting beer to try. As I always say, take a wee bit of time to just ponder over the aroma though, but we have spent quite a wee bit chatting about this one and stuff. So I think it is about time that we have a look at this beer. So this one is the Bock Amadeus rum barrel aged edition with a bit of cocoa nibs in it. 11.9% ABV from Olarin Panimo in Espoo near Helsinki in the south of Finland. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, keepies. Ooh. That's interesting. In some ways, when I think about this beer when I take it in, it's really quite, for me this is really quite interesting because when I think about this, if I was to drink this beer blind without knowing what it was, I don't know if that I would necessarily pick out that it's a Doppelbock. I get a feeling I would think this was some sort of, I'd probably think this was some sort of barley wine actually. Or like it reminds me a bit actually of the Loviatar that we had recently from Hisi. It's kind of like that. It's almost like a rye wine in some ways. Does this beer actually have a bit of rye in it? No, just barley malt. Interesting that. It's probably the mix of cocoa nibs and the barley malt base that's giving you that impression. But this, just the vibe that this beer gives really reminds me of the Loviatar from Hisi that we reviewed a few videos ago. So yeah. As I say, and that's the reason, I have to say, that probably is the reason why I'm saying that I wouldn't necessarily say from the off that this beer was a Doppelbock. But I mean, that doesn't matter so much. The question is always, is it a good beer? Yeah, this is, but this one is, as you'll know if you watch the channel, right up my street. These big brown sugary notes, the rum barrel aging as well. I love Doppelbocks. So I'm going to say thumbs up to Olarin Panimo for this one. And I have to say, when it comes to the Finnish beers, the big malty things are, have always been really good actually. When I think about something that Riku said to me as well, this beer being produced in 2021, kind of makes sense because when I was over in Finland in the summer, the dark beers just really weren't there. So this beer's probably been produced a little bit over a year ago. It's probably at the very end of 2021 that this beer's been produced. And yeah, because they'll be, redoing all the dark beers. They will have been redoing the dark beers recently for Christmas 2022. But yeah, I think this is a pretty nice beer. But like I say, really reminds me of the Loviatar rye wine from Panimo Hisi that we had recently. But yeah, this is interesting for sure. And this is what you want after 3,600 odd beer reviews. You want beers that are going to test your palate a little bit. So let's look at this. Middle third of your palate then. The backbone of this beer is quite interesting because the way the flavours come out in this beer is quite a wee bit different from what you might think in terms of the flavour profile, or if in comparison to the aroma. My brain's not working today. But yeah, that middle third of your palate, let's start with that then. You can feel the backbone of this beer. You've got that smooth, dry, woody character coming out of this one. So yeah, smooth, dry, woody character coming out of the beer. You get, in fairness, the bready notes from the Doppelbock itself actually kind of creep into the woody character quite a wee bit with this beer, so that's interesting as well. So you can feel that smooth woody backbone in there, the smooth oak. Toward the front of that you get a little bit of, you do get a little touch of vanilla going forward, and you can feel the layer, the sort of rum spirit sitting on top of that, so you get a little bit of that rum sweetness out of it. But yeah, so the kind of rum, the sort of rum sweetness in this beer kind of comes, it takes a little bit of time to come out. The further, I'm finding that the further into the aftertaste you go with this beer, the more you get the barrel out of it, but early on, it's a lot of the bread from the Doppelbock, which I like. So yeah, you've got that smooth woodiness in there. You've got the little bit of vanilla. You've got a wee touch of the the kind of rum spirit above that. Then you get all the bready character out of this beer, and the bready character in this one is kind of like what I was describing to you in the aroma. You get that kind of rum, it's not rum, that rye, that nice German rye bread crust in there. That's forming the base of the beer. On top of that, you get the more airy and slightly sweet rye bready character. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, within that layer, you get some of the nuttiness out of the beer. Then you've got a slightly more smooth and dense wholemeal brown bread character coming out of it, which is interesting. So the bready notes you get above the rum spirit in this one are very layered. So yeah, in terms of the bready notes in this beer, when I think about the actual Doppelbock, it's definitely one of the more bready leaning Doppelbocks that I can think of that I've come across. And these beers can be quite interesting. I found recently when I've gone back to Doppelbocks compared to how I used to think about these beers, I found that quite a few of them are more bready than I remember them being back in the day. But this kind of goes to show you how your palate is always changing. And this beer, the actual Doppelbock side of it, really strikes me as just being more bready rather than anything else. So that's kind of interesting. But above the kind of wholemeal brown bready layer, you do of course start to get the brown sugary notes. And the bready layer almost forms this kind of cup in the middle of your palate. And then the brown sugars just sit inside that little cup. So you can feel the sort of leathery brown sugar layer. And above that, that's the base layer. Above that, you start to get the more kind of treacly molasses sort of thing. So yeah, there's a bit of a treacly molasses sort of thing coming out of it as well. And then you get a little bit more of a sweeter caramel. Like in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's like a little circle of straight up kind of sweet caramel there. And of course the brown sugars are what's masking the alcohol in this beer. 11.9% ABV. This one is pretty heavy, generally speaking, but also very heavy within its style category. Quite, if I remember rightly, Eyinger Celebrator, which is one of the staples of this this style. I'm sure that's 6.7% ABV. I forget, I think the Weltenberg Assam Bock and the Weihenstephaner Corbinian, which are also famous examples of the beer, those are about 7.2 or something like that. So yeah, then the brown sugars cover up the alcohol in this, but when you have that kind of caramel, when you get to the top of that brown sugary sort of cup that we're talking about, you also get some nice biscuity qualities coming out of the beer. So yeah, this beer for me as a Doppelbock, it's one of the more bready ones I've had, and it shows you a nice diversity of brown sugars as well. But the rum barrel aged side of thing on this is quite interesting. So yeah, I think we've covered the middle third of the palate in this beer quite well now. So let's go on to the back third of the palate. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, this is quite interesting because you do have that bready build up there, but for me that's where a lot of the cocoa nibs in this beer come out. Like you really have that kind of dry chocolatey cocoa nibby type quality in there. And cocoa nibs for me, they can be quite sweet, but they just give you this sort of powdery dryness in the flavour, and you really get that in this one. But the back third of the palate is quite similar to the middle third in a lot of ways. It's just the composition is a wee bit different. So the base layer, you've got a smooth woody character there, but it is of course a little bit drier. You've also got the kind of rum brown sugary characters on top of that, which are a wee bit drier, but again very nice. Then you've got you do have the bread crust, and again the bread crust is more kind of grainy and dry. Then you've got the rye bready layer, which is definitely taller and more airy, and then you have the wholemeal brown bready character above that. And as I say, the main difference between those bready layers is that they're just taller and a little bit more sort of airy. So yeah, I like how that, I do like how that goes together in this one. So that gets a thumbs up from me. Above that layer though, there is a wee bit more of a kind of yeasty character in there, and it feels like a more just a bright and sort of more honeycomb infused brown bready layer. I always seem to get the back of the palette, I always seem to just get a little bit of a, from the yeasty character in these beers, I often get just a little bit of a lighter bread and a kind of honeycomb type flavour. But definitely on that back third of the palette, you can feel the flavour is taller, and then as you come further forward, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together for me, I think is really nice. So big thumbs up from me for the malty and yeasty and barrel side of this beer actually. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. Green component first. So like I said earlier, for me, this beer, it's surprising how much hoppy character kind of remains in this one. In the back corner of the palate, in the back corners I should say, you do have a little bit of that smooth earthiness in there. It has got a bit of dryness to it in fairness, but as you come further forward, it's got a little bit of a kind of herbal character, and you can kind of almost feel the cocoa nibs playing in there in the back of your palate too. But remember, drier and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward, and that's generally speaking. But yeah, as you move further forward on this one, you get a good little bit of a floral aromaticity coming out of the beer, which is nice. But then round the front curve of the palate, you've got a bit of a lighter, more grassy type note to it as well, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, a little bit more of a grassy note too. So I like that. I do like how that goes together. Yeah, nice. The more that you drink of this beer, you do get a bit more zestiness from the grassy component in this one, so that's quite interesting as well. But yeah, I like the way that this beer goes together. So yeah, in terms of the front third of your palate then, for me, this beer is the fruity side of things. On that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up again, and interestingly enough, you do get a wee touch of the cocoa nibby type quality in this one. It's got a little bit of a kind of cakey quality to it, come to think of it, but the base of that front third of the palate, smooth, woody rum barrels. You've got a little bit of that, you've got a little bit of the, you've got a little bit of the spirit in there as well, which is quite interesting. And then, yeah, you've just got a wee bit of the smooth breadiness. But above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at the fruity side of this one. So yeah, for me, the base of that back half of the front third of your palate, you do have a bit of that sort of phenolic-y, cough medicine, cough syrup type thing there. But above that, the fruits do vary in this beer quite a wee bit from the aroma. This one, in the aroma, it was really sharp and red fruity, but in the beer itself, it's got a little bit more of the dry fruity character. So let's just take it from impact. So yeah, when you take the beer in, yeah, you'll get a little bit at the back of that front half, at the back of that front third of your palate, a little bit of raisin, a little bit of plum, but then underneath that, yeah, you get the prunes, you get the dates, you also get the sultanas. But as you move further forward in that front third of your palate, you do get a little bit more of it. You start to get a little bit of fig, you start to get a little bit of kind of black currant as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, and then above that there is a little bit of blackberry there. But the things that really linger are the kind of the dates, the prunes, the sultanas, and that sort of phenolic-y note. But there are other brighter red fruits or berry fruits are most definitely there. It's really interesting, this one. The cocoa nibs come out quite a lot. The rum barrel aging comes out further into the aftertaste as well. It's a really nicely done beer, this one. it's just quite unusual because you don't get many barrel-aged Doppelbocks. In my experience, maybe more in America, maybe you get more in the States or something like that. But here in Europe, yeah, it's not a style that is commonly barrel aged. It's a style that we would tend to go more for the traditional German type of thing. So that's an interesting perspective with this one. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, then to round off this review, I would say that this beer, yeah, it's kind of bottom end of full bodied for me. Carbonation is quite smooth. It's got a little bit of oiliness to it, but this beer as well has a bit of dryness because of the barrel aging and because of the cocoa nib addition. And of course, you have to remember as well, this one, it's not pushing into the higher ends of the full body region because it is a lager. You know, lagers are lighter. That's a whole characteristic of that category of beer, if we can call it that. But yeah, when it comes to IBU count in this beer, this one isn't overly bitter, it's more a dryness you get out of this one. So it's probably about 20-ish IBUs. But as we said, the barrel aged side of the beer and the malty base and the adjuncts and stuff itself, they do have that does give it an inherent dryness. So you've got a lovely smooth breadiness to this one. You've got big brown sugary notes to it, a little bit of oily character as well. So yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think, is really, really nice. But on the fruity side of things, good little bit of dry fruit character, but a bit of more oily berry fruit to it as well. This beer kind of gives you everything you would want from a Doppelbock, but it just makes it a little bit more quirky. I think that's probably a good way to describe this one. So Olarin Panimo definitely get a thumbs up from me, just for being a bit more creative with this style of beer. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. So this was the Bock Me Amadeus, a rum barrel-aged Doppelbock at 11.9% ABV with a bit of cocoa nib added to it from Olarin Panimo in Espoo in Finland. Really enjoyed reviewing this beer. It certainly did make me think. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Olarin Panimo as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys once again at some point in the near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, see you guys in the next review.